Hi, I'm Jenesee, Head of Community Development at Player XP, and today is our first show. I'm here with the founders of Player XP, the guys who've been making AI work since 2015, Andy and Chris. So can you guys introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about you? Do you want to roll in alphabetical order, or how do you want to do?
Cool. So I'm Andy. I'm the CTO here at Player XP. I'm a co-founder as well, and we've been an entity for nearly a decade now. We've been together for more than that. And my chief responsibility here at Player XP is the production of systems and AI for our various use cases in the games industry. So we're analyzing player sentiment, we're analyzing toxicity, we're doing all of those kind of lovely things and providing insights into communities so that games developers and publishers can do what they do. So I'm mastermind of all the tech behind that. By no means is it a single man job, though. I've got a really good team behind me that I'm, really proud of as well.
Nice.
Brilliant.
Okay, we'll delve into them in a little while. But Chris, your turn.
So Chris, I'm the co-founder of Player XP as well, and I'm the chief exec, and I do everything that Andy doesn't. That's nice and easy. No. So when I'm not doing kind of all of the corporate strategy and vision of the business, I work closely with studios and publishers to meet their kind of community player needs, whether that be sentiment analysis, toxicity, use cases around sales data, quantifying data. That's where I spend most of my time. That's what I enjoy doing.
Awesome. So now everyone should know why they should listen to you guys as experts. Let's talk about tools that are out there for the average day that people kind of probably are discovering as this AI boom comes about, and what might be in your wheelhouse. Okay, so our first segment is about tools. Now, caveat on this, as I know you want to put in here, this is what we've discovered by doing like some basic internet research. Some of us are using these tools, etc. We're not recommending these as like the best tools. We're not even saying that the EULAs on these tools are good EULAs. We're just talking about tools that are being discussed right now in the AI community. So if people do not enjoy these tools, your mileage may vary. Fair to say?
Yeah, for sure.
Yes. Yes, that's our disclaimer.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Even while we're using Zoom to record this and knowing that some things have been coming up with everyone's grab for AI. Yeah.
I think every single person that uses Zoom, every single time you log in, you have to run an update because they're always changing their security policies or the security codes on it. I don't think I've ever ran Zoom and then not had it run an update.
That's scary. I mean, what is it? What they used to count down, like days to flash updates? I mean, is that where we're at now? Like days to Zoom update?
Days,
it is quite
hours.
It is quite interesting that so many different clients use different video conferencing softwares for different reasons. So Warner Brothers will use Zoom. The NHS public sector will use Microsoft Teams, and they all have a different perspective on the security and value of each one. And I think that actually goes to show that there isn't one tool that's kind of for video conferencing that is the best, because everyone has a different perspective on which one they trust the most.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's very different, like a whole Google ecosystem, like Meet is kind of our scenario, or Slack for the most part. And people do get really annoyed. Like they're very, very proprietary about their system. Like anytime we have a Meet invite or something with clients, I'm always just like, I have to download this on my phone again. I get very grumpy about that. Not at the client, but the fact that this is not my ecosystem. People kind of stay in their box for sure when it comes to that stuff. So, okay, let's do tools. So in AI news, I don't know if you've heard about this Neuralango tool. Nvidia has decided that their rendering tool from 2 to 3D is now kind of available, and it's supposed to use the same tech as this NERF tech, which basically it's like fidelity to make things look less cartoonish. So I haven't used this yet, but I know people are interested in taking comics and some more like flat 2D stuff and using this tool, Neuralango. I don't know if you've seen this yet.
I haven't seen Neuralango in particular, but Nvidia are like really pushing the boundaries on kind of like the AI tooling that's available. On top of that, they've also recently started showing off their Nvidia RTX refitting stuff for the game for old games. So remix, you can use AI to remix pipelines and get new assets into games and that kind of stuff as well. So yeah, they're really pushing like the forefront on these kind of like GPU powered AI solutions. There's a lot coming from them, especially in the past kind of month or so.
Yeah, and that's very like hardware focused, right? Like I think we'll probably get into this in more detail now in like future episodes, but there's a lot of different types of AI. And I think when you're talking about AI in this space that Nvidia is pushing, it's very different from what people think of when you talk about AI today. Like text analytics for a generative AI is kind of where everyone's thinking and putting their energy at the moment. But actually, it's really great to see NVIDIA doing the stuff that they're doing, because that's going to have quite a big impact, I think, to the games industry.
Yeah, there's
Go ahead.
There's some big pipeline changes coming from AI, which is really interesting because a lot of people think that the big impact of AI is going to be automation of unskilled labor, but like automation of unskilled labor is already here. You don't need AI to do that. Where AI tooling is going to come in the future is like the changes to skilled labor and how those jobs they're not like, there might be one thing now in terms of spending lots of time crunching numbers or going over data sets and that kind of stuff, but these new AI tools, they come in and they completely change your workflow. So like the Remix tool is an example of that. Neuralango is an example of that. It's all changes to skilled workflows.
That does bring us to a point where one of the things I think we should do with this show, and in part of the plan, is to kind of talk about the AI tropes or the AI scares or the AI misconceptions that people probably have that are going on right now. And one of those that you just touched on is definitely the AI is coming for my job kind of scare tactic that's kind of running around. Can you expand on that a little bit, and what you're kind of saying that, this is unskilled labor versus people that already have jobs doing this kind of thing, just a little bit more, because I think that is one of those things that people have an innate fear for. And that is one of the things that's kind of being used to push back against some of the tech that's expanding right now.
Yeah, I mean, basically my point was that advancements in AI aren't allowing us to replace unskilled jobs because those are already going away, basically. Like advancements in tech outside of AI I've seen a massive reduction in the number of unskilled labor jobs available anyway. All you have to do is go into your local supermarket and see how many people are manning tills these days versus how they were like 10, 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. And you can already see that disappearing of the unskilled labor force is already happening. What people are probably more scared of now is that AI tools are starting to touch things that would traditionally be considered white collar jobs. So things like data entry, administrative tasks, like copywriting, that kind of stuff. AI is starting to go into that area now. And that's probably what has people more worried, because they're previously safe jobs. Oh, you can't automate copyright. All of a sudden, it's becoming more of a thing.
With that, let's move to our next news segment, which is AI news. Amazon is adding AI-generated review summaries. Have you seen this? Where basically it highlights like the key points from customer reviews. The idea is to kind of help shoppers to quickly gauge product sentiment, essentially. So it takes a snapshot of product features and opinions from reviews. And then this is like their way to kind of improve their, I think it's 125 million reviews from shoppers already. And basically it just like promotes verified purchases and tries to get rid of fake reviews. So it's kind of their like way to go through and try to, I guess, make it a little easier for people to understand people's real opinion about a product. AI generated review summaries. What do we think about this?
Yeah, it's a good idea in principle, but I think a lot of these things always have elements of them which it could be negative for the end user. So you assume that there's going to have a high level of accuracy, and you assume that the bots are going to remove all of the fake reviews, but they don't share the statistics and they don't share the data on how successful those systems are in removing fake reviews. So we see from our own systems and our own work that the internet is riddled with bots and fake reviews and, you know, pay per view type stuff. And I think while in principle it's a good idea for Amazon to give you summarized views to give you a better insight, similar to what TripAdvisor do when you go for an Airbnb or you want to visit somewhere and you want to see what, you know, the food's like. You click on a food filter and it gives you all the reviews based around food. People should always be a little cautious when they see summarized data content from providers like Amazon, because you don't really know how accurate it is. When it says, 10,000 people said this was really great, you just can't immediately assume that that's actually true.
Okay. I mean, one of the things I really enjoy about Amazon reviews, I don't know if this is just my own little morbid feel, is that sometimes they're just really sarcastic. And honestly, I find reading the reviews to be really funny. Like I remember there was a whole Bic pen for women thing. Do you remember that, like 5 years ago, where Amazon had a Bic pen for women and people were writing reviews about how they finally have something perfect for their small hands, and like this whole, like, just sarcastic things. The reviews are the best part of Amazon, to be honest. When I'm looking for a product, going through and seeing what people actually think of it, especially if it's brutally honest, is a true joy. So I hope they don't like ruin the best part of reading reviews that people are truly being blunt about. We'll see.
The best part of the reviews I find whenever I'm doing like an Amazon shop or any other shop is the images. When someone actually takes a picture of the product and then you can actually see it and it's like on someone's bed or on someone's desk and you're like, okay, this is the actual thing I'm going to get, not the fake image which is on the product, which has had a load of marketing or Photoshop to it. Like, you just want to see the genuine article. And I'm still surprised that products, when they're sold kind of online, they don't just show you the genuine article and a picture of it on a table. It's always still Photoshop, you know, to the nth degree. And that's not what really people want to see. They just want to see the actual thing. And there's no reason they won't buy the item still. That's what I look for in reviews. I kind of skip through a lot of the text and just go straight to the images.
To the photos. Yeah. No, that makes sense too. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, on the point, your original point about the AI system itself they're developing, or they've released, or Amazon have got some like really good stuff in terms of AI out there, like their SageMaker studios and SageMaker tools, making AI models and that kind of stuff a lot easier. So they know what they're doing when it comes to production of AI models. However, that particular use case raises some immediate red flags for me that I would need to investigate more, and probably don't have access to that information. So, for instance, the veracity of the data set, how have they produced that data set of real versus not real reviews? You mentioned like they're trying to kind of remove with AI that kind of selection of fake reviews. As far as I'm aware, even real reviews can be quite short at times, so it's not going to be necessarily biased to length, but there's going to be, the whole point of a fake review is it mimics the language of a real review. So there is a question there about how do they detect these, and is that accuracy good enough? And even if they present accuracy figures at some point, how do they arrive at those accuracy figures? Because what you're talking about there is a classification problem within AI. So classification is, there's generally two broad strokes of AI problem, which aren't generative in nature, and that is regression and classification. So what you're talking about is a classification problem, and the way you measure accuracy in classification problems is you measure two elements, precision and recall, which is actually very important in AI. Accuracy tests. Precision being when you make a judgment about something, how often is the model correct? So every time it goes, this review's fake, how often is it correcting that assessment? And then recall is, of all of the fake reviews in the data set, how many of them does it detect? So you could have a really high precision, but a really low recall. And then you combine those two elements together to get your accuracy score. But then there's a number of ways you can combine those elements together. And accuracy is normally derived with something called an F score, which is precision and recall together, and you weight them differently. So unless they're giving you like the full technical breakdown, you actually don't know. They could say, oh, our accuracy is 90% or 99%. And it's like, oh yeah, that's on a data set of 1,000 data points, and it's detected 2 data points, and they're actually talking about precision. So, yeah. There's a lot to unpack there. So we've got something to keep in mind whenever you're looking at an AI tool and going, is this a good AI tool? Accuracy isn't everything, or accuracy isn't everything. Actual accuracy is, but determining what the best way of measuring that is difficult. And between you getting those figures and between Amazon producing them, there's going to be marketing in the middle going, okay, well, just talk about precision, or just talk about recall, or our F 0.5 is better than our F1, so let's use that. And is that necessarily the best assessment of the tool?
And would you even be able to verify that? I mean, let's say you do ban, X number of reviews. How do you know that they were truly, not legit reviews? Like, how would you even come up with such a score?
Honestly, you'd have to make the fake reviews yourself, and then
you would test it by you would set up your sandbox, etc., whatever it was. Okay,
so you would have what you would consider real reviews, which could be fake, and then you'd have to compare them against your definitely fake reviews, and how you assess those are fake or not. That is a difficult assumption for building that data set. So I'm not quite sure how they've done that. They obviously have a lot more telemetry, because they run the site. They have a lot of telemetry on whether a review is fake or not, that they could maybe try to use to determine that. But it does sound like a difficult problem, and I would be concerned about the accuracy of that data set.
And that's the problem, though. Like the way I see this is, the challenge here is there's that technical challenge for them to get an accuracy in identifying fake reviews, but we're talking about this from classification perspective and AI perspective. How do you generate accuracy? When we look at tools in the market and when we look at outputs in the market, we go, okay, well, I know how they've derived this score. I know the process that it took to get the score. So immediately I'm hesitant to accept what I'm being told by this AI system that Amazon's created, right? The problem we see in the wider industry, people that don't develop AI systems like we do, people that don't have the knowledge that we have on how they derive these scores, is that you just take for granted what an AI system's told you, and you take for granted Amazon says that it's analyzed all of these reviews. These are all fake. These are all accurate. And they say this product's great. You should buy it. And people just immediately go, an AI system is smarter than me. All the marketing from Amazon said that it's trained on hundreds of millions of data points. So, the trust immediately is there for it. And part of the issue that we're going to see with AI tools moving forward, I think, is that there's just no accountability for those outputs. There's no accountability on what people are taking from those outputs and their purchase decisions based on what you're being told. And I think fundamentally what you're talking about there, about the F score, that precision and that recall, that is the challenge, is how do you communicate that to your end user or the customers? So when they're making purchase decisions based off that accuracy score that Amazon give you, what are they actually saying and how are they actually communicating that? And at the moment, I think a lot of the market's still kind of not showing that information, and it's a bit of an issue, I think.
Yeah, I think obviously government and regulatory agencies are always playing catch up. I think part of what we're going to see going forward is that advertisement of AI systems is going to be regulated like all advertisement at some point. And one of those things is the standardized measures by which we give accuracy ratings of how good is this system in reality. And I could very well see advertising regulations in terms of, when you give accuracy, it has to be this F score. It has to be at least this many data points in your test set. It has to be this and that. Or you have to provide that figure in small print or something like that. I could very easily see that being something that comes forward in the future.
Yeah, it'll be like ISO certificates. So you have data management certificates or GDPR certificates to say that your business follows these procedures. And so you have the certificate from an awarding body. So you know that it's a trusted entity that, follows proper procedure. It'll be exactly the same for AI. There'll be certificates that get awarded from an awarding body like the Information Commissioner's Office that say this AI business follows, proper methods to generate this figure, and they have data compliance, avoiding things like data commingling and all of the other kind of deep AI issues that companies face. Yeah. And they'll probably be really, really expensive to get as well, knowing kind of the way that these things work. And they'll take 6 to 12 months to get. And that will kill a lot of the AI tools and businesses that spring up out of nowhere to try and make a quick buck, because it won't be profitable for them to pursue those certifications.
So you think there'll be like some kind of a regulating body that is dealing with this quantifiable, measurable statistic that kind of verifies every single one of these? Or how will they agree on the legitimacy of that?
So it's probably going to come from like a couple of different ways. So there'll be legal and regulatory additions to AI, which will come from government, and different jurisdictions will have different rules around how AI is used and managed. And that's similar to kind of how we see today of GDPR and data, law and legislation in different jurisdictions. Like Germany, for example, has really, really strict data laws, and there are other countries that have less strict data laws because they take a different approach to it. From a commercial perspective, when you take a level below that, I think companies will have very strict procurement vendor policies around what AI systems they use, how they use it, what they would want to expect from a company that's providing AI services. And I think that beyond the scope of the legal requirements, I think industry will just kind of dictate what is and isn't needed. So if you're shopping for AI tools, you may want to see what the data is, and you may want to see where it's hosted and how those training models are created. And the more clients and customers that ask for that information from AI vendors, the more AI vendors are going to have to pony up that information and share it. So I think a lot of it will be led by industry. Once industry kind of catches up with what AI is today, they'll be asking those difficult questions.
Okay. Well, that's fascinating. Again, another whole topic we can delve into for just one show, because I would love to go over those terms and imagine what that would look like in the future. But okay, let's move on to a couple more of these. I think we want to get to our main talk shortly. We're spending some good time talking about these AI news stuff. I guess one of the things I want to ask you about, I know I don't have this in our show notes, but what do you think about the AI chip Athena that's in development right now that Microsoft is working on? This is kind of a newer thing that in the last few weeks has been talked about more. I understand they made a deal, I think it was a $1 billion deal with OpenAI to run their models through Azure. And so this now chip is in development, hopefully, as I said, early next year. So not far from actually launching. Have you read anything about Athena, and what do you think about the idea that I guess these are going to be more and more powerful as we have needs going on with this?
Yeah. So as things become more entrenched and we have like more kind of AI solutions out there, we're going to start seeing this. At the moment, when we want to run an AI system with some power behind it, we're actually running it through GPUs generally at the moment. So GPUs are the way you run a more hefty system. Less hefty systems you can run on general purpose CPUs. But we saw this with crypto as well. Once GPUs become insufficient for running our needs, we start moving to multi-GPU setups. And then once you need a more efficient solution, you start looking at specific architectures, and it sounds like kind of Microsoft are jumping to that specific architecture point, or kind of jumping somewhere along that road. It's very early to like make a judgment on like whether it's going to be good or not. Like a lot of these things, a lot of these things get announced and then they kind of never materialize. We've had things like the AR glasses from Microsoft as well, which were poised to come out for a while now, and they haven't. And there's been other things like that in the past. So I'm bated breath basically from my side, from a technical perspective. I want to see how it performs and what it can be used for before I make any further judgment on that kind of stuff. But it sounds promising, for sure.
Yeah,
I was reading that it costs $700 million to run regular queries just in ChatGPT. Like, how is that even feasible? Like, why is it so expensive?
Well, it's just if you think about $100 million, right? So that everyone is using ChatGPT at the moment, and not for simple things as well, for highly complex things. People are using it to, things that require a lot of processing steps. So like, write me a report on this, right? And it's like a 500-word report or a 1,000-word report. There's a lot of stuff being produced and a lot of usage. And if you think about every single person costing $1 that's using it, you're already at like what? Probably if 40 million people used it, you're already at $40 million, right? So if they use it twice, you're at $80 million. You see, the economies of scale, it creeps up on you fast. So I could very easily see ChatGPT being very expensive to run, because especially considering its size. Like we don't know everything about ChatGPT. It's not, since it's been bought by Microsoft, like they've obviously made adjustments and improvements to it, but we generally know about like how big it is, and it's a very big model with a very big training set. So just hosting and running that is already more expensive than most AI models that are in production. So part of like getting AI models ready for production is making sure that their impact is low enough that you're not spending like tons of money just to keep the thing hosted and running. But with something like ChatGPT, where it's getting so much use and it's such a large model, I can very easily see it being that figure. Like, I'm actually surprised it's not more.
Yeah. I think that is actually kind of a whole episode and talk in of itself, because everyone's talking about the outputs of AI, but no one's actually talking about the system architecture and infrastructure that's required to run it. And we start to talk about quantum computing and CPU power and GPU power, and actually how do you run AI? It's not kind of just a battery you plug in the back of a robot and it just does its thing. It requires a lot of power, and people just are so used to just pushing the button and then things working. They don't necessarily think about the elements behind it. So, services like Microsoft Azure, Amazon AWS, Google's G Cloud, these big cloud infrastructures where they have hundreds of millions of pounds worth of hardware. These are actually the true providers of AI. When you're running your models and you're running your systems, you are running it on one of probably these three cloud infrastructures. If you remove all of these cloud infrastructures away, then for the majority, all the AI systems will disappear, because they probably all run on this infrastructure. So without the infrastructure, there are no AI tools, meaningful AI tools anyway, ones you can't run on your kind of local PC or a couple of local servers.
Yeah. So like, you could obviously, you would have, if it wasn't for cloud infrastructure, you'd have tools that would be like company specific, and they'd run on like 2 servers, and the only 10 people would be allowed to access them, that kind of thing. But that kind of democratization of AI that we're kind of going through at the moment, where AI tools are suddenly becoming way more widespread, people are more aware of them. That's as Chris said, completely powered by cloud infrastructure providers.
Okay, I know where to put money in my next portfolio purchase. Okay, so there's lots of other things like in go ahead. No, more?
I was going to say maybe 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But the trouble is now they're all market capped and all that stuff. But like 20 years ago, for sure.
I mean, it is a thing. So I've had a few conversations with people, and actually you were there for one of them, Andy, where somebody was talking to us about wanting to create their own kind of data center and servers and sell that resource for future, AI models to be run on and such. So anyone that's looking to do that is a bit late to the party, but people are kind of aware of it now. People are acutely aware of the infrastructure needed, and along with that infrastructure, all of the elements around net zero, carbon neutral footprint, and how do you run all of these servers without damaging the planet, which is a very heated, active topic at the moment about kind of what we're doing to the planet, and like how do you create hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of servers that are causing all this heat, causing kind of all this pollution through the creation of them. So there are so many elements that come off it. So more AI is more damage to the environment, basically, which is a whole other thing which you could talk about.
Okay. Yeah, more subjects. I mean, I know that was, I hate to even to whisper the word NFT, but I know that was a big discussion point of that, and I think most people sort of my technological understanding level, which is pretty basic, still feel like graphics cards are, kind of the improvement in graphics cards are what makes that better for AI, without realizing that we've now moved past that to the point like GPUs are not where it's at anymore, and it's now cloud-based. So that's really interesting to note.
Well, I mean, it is GPUs in the cloud. So the cloud infrastructure is effectively big farms of servers with CPUs and GPUs. But these cloud infrastructure providers have specialist GPUs that aren't for running actually graphics through them. They are for running AI systems on. So they are GPUs, but they're specialist GPUs in that sense.
Well, I wonder whether we'll get to a point where you start talking about free range GPU farms where you can get cloud infrastructure, which is
it hasn't been caged. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we used to have that a long time ago on the dark web. Anyway, going on to our main talk. So we do want to talk about jobs, and this is going to be something we talk about a little more on the show. I'm skipping a little bit of the news. We'll come back to it if we have a chance to. Some of the cool stuff about firefighting now using AI, which I think would be a good story, but we'll see if we have time for this at the end. But back to Andy's talk and making this our main point. People are panicking, and we're going to link and show a little video really quick here from Forbes, from our friend who talks about jobs with a high level of exposure to AI tend to be higher paying. And then professionals in those jobs, professionals feel that the jobs are at risk, that the AI might hurt them personally. 32% of workers say that they think it would hurt them personally. And 11% say that it will hurt more than it helps. So we'll talk about that stuff. And I'll link this kind of little short video.
Perhaps the biggest nightmare is the looming new industrial revolution.
The erosion of the middle class, already one of America's most serious problems, could get much worse with AI if we ignore it.
Here's how AI is already taking over tasks at white-collar jobs, and why employees and companies are both excited and concerned for the future of work. Generative AI can auto-complete your sentences, write feature-length films, or organize your calendar. And tools using it, like ChatGPT, are taking on an increasing role in white-collar work. They can create first drafts of documents, presentations, images, video, and product designs. Currently, 25% of work tasks could be automated by AI in the US, according to Goldman Sachs research.
But there's a lot of like panic on this, and I know you've kind of written I think an article about this as well. But let's talk about that a little bit. Let's see. I want to focus on health, STEM, transportation, warehousing, business, and legal professionals, which are supposed to be like the ones that are growing under AI. Why would you think, like, why do they say that health, STEM, transportation, warehouse, business, legal professionals would be benefited by AI? Do we have thoughts on those specific ones?
So you kind of, there are a lot of components to AI, and there's a lot of different types of AI systems. So when we kind of ask this question, what we really need to do is break it down to what is AI and how, what systems exist to kind of help these professions. Generally, people think AI is just kind of an automation tool. So back to Andy's point earlier around kind of unskilled labor, you bring in an AI tool and it just replaces your job simply and just automates a laborious process. But AI can be more than that. So AI can speed process up, and it can remove the need for human intervention to some degree, but it can also provide further insights and clarity on topics. So when we start talking about, say, the health industry, we start looking at image recognition with AI. AI tools can discover problems with scans or x-rays. I think there's some work with cancers that are being worked on at the moment where AI systems can have a higher level of accuracy in determining whether there's something cancerous in the photo than a person. So it's not just about necessarily the automation of tasks, which is a big component in a lot of these industries where AI can speed the process up for a lot of the day-to-day tasks and jobs that people do. But where it gets really insightful and exciting is where AI can actually also improve the work that people are doing, and they can engage with AI then to do their job in a better way, not just in a quicker way.
Like surgeons being able to sort of 3D, is that what we're thinking AI is going to help with? That sort of like operations, actual literal operations, and being able to provide perhaps, in a game scenario where it's like, here's the blue line of where you should go. AI is projecting, you should do that.
Yeah, that's like, that's a good example where, if we could create an AI system which, improve the success rate of surgeries, that would be huge. And that would be really helpful. And people wouldn't be so scared then to kind of have AI integrate into these industries because it's for the greater good. I think a lot of the fear around AI is that it's just going to kind of replace everyone's jobs, and then they're not going to get any other jobs outside the back of that. And it's because of a lot of the rhetoric that we see online, people are not necessarily thinking about the positives of this technology. And you only need to think about AI in the health sector to think about all of the positive things that AI can do to, identify cures, identify, dementia earlier and things like that to really help people, the quality of life for people. A lot of the focus around the conversations is around the negative aspects of replacing jobs.
It's true. Let's take these one at a time, these particular areas. So healthcare, if I can devil's advocate us a little bit. So the fear, I think, when it comes to AI, while it would be lovely to have all of your electronic digital records gone through, and I think there would be a lot of benefit in being able to say, here's all the components of you as a person with health issues or health concerns. Let's make a picture of you. And then this will show us, maybe where we should focus on your treatment in the future, or preventative treatment, or et cetera, et cetera. You are now a digital footprint of, Chris. How does that prevent us from getting from A to Gattaca? How do we? And that is a true fear, I feel like, at least for me. Like, while I would love, and I know that health insurance companies in the US probably already have this database that says you're going to die at X year, you're going to die of this, and we know already like your value as a paying customer. How do we go from a place where all of this combined information now makes a picture that is beneficial versus now makes a picture that is constraining or monetarily frightening?
It is a very important question. And one of the things you have to consider is that AI, like any kind of tool or discovery or invention, has its good purposes and its bad ones. And the way you get good purposes out of things and not bad ones is generally through regulation, right? Of some measure, laws, things like that. So, for instance, the way insurance companies behave and how they interact with their clientele is based largely on regulation, because otherwise insurance companies would be even more predatory than they could be. So like any kind of business, we have to make sure that as we're developing artificial intelligence solutions and more things become possible with AI, we have to make sure like we have that kind of ethical framework in place, and that's enshrined in law or regulation of some description. We can't just be saying, well, the Wild West is okay for AI, it's okay forever. That was the case for e-commerce back in the day. E-commerce was a Wild West, and then all of a sudden all these government regulations come in, and now all of a sudden you have to be, some of this stuff is like led by industry, like, the prevalence of SSL certification and that kind of stuff, that all came in to make sure that we have, the correct protections in place. And that's going to be the case for AI as well. We're kind of in the Wild West stage at the moment. Everyone's basically throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks and like where we can progress. But eventually, there's going to eventually have to be brains put on it, or we're going to end up in the Gattaca situation, as you said, especially when it comes to things like health. But for health, there is a lot of benefits there, right? Like all of the things that Chris mentioned earlier are possibilities with AI. And so what we have to make sure is that we guide it down the right path, I guess, is really what we have to do. And so,
Then that's the challenge, right? That is the kind of, when we look at AI as a tool, I hate to use this example, but it's like weapons. You can put a machine gun in the hand of a soldier defending your rights. It's a good tool that can be used to defend your rights. But then you put a machine gun into someone who has bad intent, then suddenly the machine gun is a bad thing. And AI tools, and they don't think for themselves. They're trained on models, they're given instructions, and it depends on the person developing the tool and using the tool. And because AI is not a physical thing, it's a digital solution, it's incredibly hard to police. And what we're seeing at the moment is that progression and maturity of legislation and regulation, like Andy said, to try and find ways to regulate and police how AI tools are used and how they're implemented. But because it's not physical, it's incredibly hard to do. And in many ways, it's policed by fines. And the big corporations like Facebook and Amazon and so forth have unlimited money. So when you find these companies, they just pay the fine and then carry on. And that's where it gets really tricky. But for health, you have malpractice insurance and malpractice litigation where hospitals will get sued for doing the wrong thing. And that's what will happen. We'll see with AI. They'll implement AI tools which will be regulated. And then if they misuse those tools, or those tools go wrong and they're not maintained and they're not repaired, just like when you've got hardware, you need to maintain and repair these AI tools when they go wrong, then there'll be litigation there, and they'll lose a lot of money for it.
And that kind of points back to like, why is it predicted that under AI these job roles are going to increase? Because there's all of these improvements that are going to come through, but based around that, there's a knock on to the health sector, in that there's going to need to be specialist job roles for maintaining these systems. And, it's not going to be a doctor trained to use this, to maintain this. They're going to be trained to use it, but someone else is going to be responsible for that system. Then there's also going to be the legal side of it, which we are saying is growing separately, but then that attaches onto the health side of it. So it kind of, as AI comes through, they all kind of feed into each other, because these are all very specialist job roles, right? So even if AI can do whatever task we're talking about better, you're not going to trust no oversight. At least not for the next 50 years. So like in 50 years time, people might be so used to AI that they don't need their human doctor to check it, and they'll be okay with it. But that's definitely not going to be the case for the next 50 years. people born now are not going to trust AI in 20 years' time to that extent. So, yeah.
We say that, and yet we see it loads and loads of. I mean, Andy's completely right, but subconsciously, people will tell ChatGPT everything. They'll put all of their information in there for free, and yet they worry about insurance companies and Facebook stealing all their data. But then when they're given a system to make their life 1,000 times easier, sure, when it's convenient for me, I'll tell the AI system everything like it needs to know. But when it's not convenient for me and when it's not with my knowledge, I don't want you knowing anything about me. So there's a bit of a dichotomy there when it comes to systems and AI tools and how they're used.
No, that's 100% true. Like, especially, I mean, I live in a very rural, kind of agrarian small town, and everyone in my town, myself included, is like, I am not sending my DNA, match to you so you can tell me who my relatives are, because I know you're going to sell that. And, you can't have my DNA data, while posting like every single thing we ate and every single place we are and tagging ourselves like globally all around and, posting like our face on everything. Like it's really weird how people decide what is privacy and what is fine to be public,
Yeah. Yeah. And incidentally, I think the biggest shifts in industry in the future will be security, software security and AI security, things of that nature, but also privacy. I think privacy will become a commodity which you'll have to pay for to have, because your information is so readily available and it's so out there that if you want to have privacy, you're going to have to pay for it in a really meaningful, big way. And if you kind of look at VPNs now, where you want digital privacy and you want to hide your IP addresses and you don't want people snooping into your packets and your activity, then you have to pay for VPNs now to get that privacy. So I think we'll see more of that in the future as well. So privacy of healthcare records, for example.
Yeah. A small part of me is dying slowly as I watch, and this is not AI, but where we are, like there's now along the roads, the cameras are going up to go into some system that watches and then flags people that are speeding, right? It's all speeding cameras now every like 7 miles or whatever on the road, where back here, nobody cares. Like you can drive 80 miles an hour, let down like a side street road, no one cares. But now it's going to be that every action that you do outside of your home and inside of your home is watched and regulated and logged somewhere. And somebody is, categorizing that, whether it's AI or not. It's a little sad, like the days of misbehavior driving really quickly are over. I'm sure it's safer for the public, however.
Yeah. I mean, we should probably also just make a note that security agencies, so in the UK, we've got kind of MI5 and MI6, and then in America, we've got like the NSA and, the FBI and the CIA. Security agencies like that, they're always kind of 10 years ahead of where the commercial sector is in these technologies. So there's a good chance that these security agencies already have all the information they could possibly ever need and want. And actually the challenge that they have is, how do I digest this information and, use it in a meaningful way? So while people have fear right now that all their data is being seen and collected, their data has been seen and collected probably for the last decade. It's just people are kind of more aware of the fact now. So they probably don't need to be so fearful, because it was already out there all the time anyway.
Do you think that's natural inclination? Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I know the NSA was collecting a lot of data for a long time that they couldn't actually do anything with. So all of a sudden AI tools come along, or AI gets to the point where it is, and now they can do stuff with that data that they couldn't do anything with before. So it's something to keep in mind.
Yeah.
Do you think this natural trust in ChatGPT and other AI related tools will be good in like the psychology sphere? Because I know one of the things that's really challenging globally, I think, is for people to find like psychologists, psychiatrists, people to talk to for mental health issues, things like that. And there's just a lack of personnel available for the number of people needing treatment. And I could definitely see this technology being something where, you have that kind of even not necessarily professional, but like friend-like feature going on. I mean, I think we saw, I'm trying to remember the name of the app that was going around. with the friend that was an AI friend that you could talk to. Oh my goodness. Replica. Have you used Replica? I was there on the alpha phase of Replica. Do you know it?
Yeah,
Oh.
I know. So I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And people would talk to, there was basically like a companion AI friend that you could kind of customize, and it would talk to you pretty realistically in conversations. And most recently, they had updated it with the option for romance. And I think the reason I remember Replica in the last like 3 months was because they removed the romance feature from Replica, and people were tragically upset about this, saying they had lost their partner and they were like really feeling like they broke up with someone and just like, mourning this relationship aspect to the app, which was kind of an interesting, very strong reaction to, that kind of chat back and forth with an AI scenario.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
Go on,
really
Andy.
tragic. It's really tragic to hear like people have that kind of reaction, but it's not surprising to me. Like if you look at the statistics on loneliness, we're like actually more lonely as a population, like the Western world. So that's America, the UK, Western Europe, these kind of places are more lonely now than they were 10, 20 years ago. We're more isolated than ever before as a society. And I think these kind of solution, like what you're seeing there, is like a band-aid for that problem. I don't know if these systems would have a positive impact. Like I'm someone that's big on numbers, and you'd have to run studies to see if these kinds of systems could have the positive impact, because what you've just described isn't necessarily a positive impact. What I could see that as is like a stalling impact, or actually a negative impact, that these people were lonely, and then rather than resolving their loneliness or taking the steps to like resolve that loneliness, they've instead moved to this AI system. And so they feel less lonely, but has their situation actually improved? Is the question I would ask.
Yeah.
And like, by what metrics are we going to measure whether these systems are actually having a positive impact? So, were these people actually less depressed with this AI system? Were they able to do more? Were they able to function better? Or were they just as depressed, but they didn't feel like, quite so lonely because they had that AI system? And in fact, actually, because they felt so attached to it, they didn't seek out real relationships or something to that effect. Like
It's so risky.
Yeah, because for every person you could help, you could also harm one or two other people. So you've got to be really careful, like with how you measure this stuff. Psychology and psychiatric help through AI systems, that feels difficult. ChatGPT is a very generalist system, and you can trust it with very generalist things. But effectively, all it does is it creates responses to, like, not questions, but all it does is it creates responses to human inputs. Whether those responses are the correct thing, or whether they're the helpful thing, or whether they're even actually real, like the contents of them is actually real, is kind of irrelevant to the system. Like what it's actually trying to do is actually just give fully fledged responses. So producing that kind of system for something that's like a specialist domain like psychology, like you would have to put that through so much stringent testing. It would basically become another self-driving car. You have self-driving cars at the moment in development, and they keep running into problems. They work fine on a test track, and then as soon as you put them in a real environment with other actual humans on the road, they fall over. And that's because actual other humans are unpredictable, and the models will always eventually fall short. So in a system like that, admittedly, you don't have to have it perfect. You have to have it better than a human. So it's not like the barrier's like impossible, but with a psychiatric system, you'd have to do so much development to it to get it to a place where you'd be happy to release it. I think it's just kind of beyond what we could do at the moment. So I'd have to see how that would shake up in the future.
It's hard for a person it's hard for a person, right? Like you can have a psychologist or a psychiatrist who's got, decades of experience, and they would can still find it difficult to provide like aid to somebody who needs it. So like, how would a system do that when it has to take in all of the nuances of that particular person's situation? Like, I have a pretty strong opinion on this, and I don't think AI systems providing that type of aid in health care is a good thing. And it should be delivered in a way that's very stringently managed and monitored. And that actually, if you're going to be on any kind of program of support from an AI system, it should be in conjunction with a psychiatrist who can monitor and manage your kind of progress. And if you're using kind of an AI buddy and you're kind of using that to get out of loneliness and depression, which is fine, that psychiatrist will make sure that you get weaned off it and you're not just entirely reliant on non-human systems like AI to basically live the rest of your life getting kind of just models telling you X, Y, and Z. I think it's a very risky area of AI to kind of implement, and something that's quite different from all of the kind of more traditional use cases people talk about AI for.
Yeah, I'm surprised.
Sorry, I was just to add to that. Chris mentioned like the decades of experience. Even with those decades of experience, professional psychological help, like professionals in that field, can be a poor match for their clients, right? Like one of the things that's advised is that you shop around for your therapist or your psychiatrist to find one that understands you and works well with you and their methods. That, you're not going to get that from an AI model. You'd have to have like now you have to produce 20 AI models at least, or 40 or 50. All of a sudden it becomes way more untenable to do again.
It's literally the thing that AI is poorest at. Trying to deliver AI systems to deliver that is literally the hardest thing an AI system can do. So therefore it should not be taken lightly to implement those systems.
Because
it's interesting to me that one of the first things people did is that they ran out and created essentially, and I don't remember the name of the program, essentially ChatGPT, where you can input everything from the internet, etc., on a specific person. And people basically created ChatGPT in their dead friend, relative, whatever's voice, so that it would speak to them and act like that person that was no longer here, and give them the feel of being with that person again, which is really interesting. Like one of the first things that people did was basically try to connect with this in the form of like, people that they'd been close to previously.
Pretty sure there's a film on that. There's a sci-fi film on that, I think, where I can't remember what it's called now.
Well, in Westworld, if you had like a tragic, remember the one guy in Westworld had his like buddy, his army buddy, like calling him all the time. That was an AI that they were trying to like therapize him with. That was kind of interesting.
It's a really weird space. I mean, it's kind of towards more kind of philosophical conversations around AI for kind of the human social element of how humans behave, what do we need, how do we consume information, and how do we consume information from an AI system which is able to kind of meet you toe to toe and adapt to your responses. It's scary.
Especially the kind of the kind of resurrection of dead relatives or loved ones. Like, we don't know how that's going to impact a grieving process, right? So for the entirety of human and pre-human history, once someone is gone, they are gone, right? Mm-hmm. There is no new words being spoken by them ever. And then now all of a sudden we have the way to kind of bring their voice back, or maybe even their likeness back and their voice, and present that to someone as if it's like them returning and saying something to them. Like, what kind of impact does that have on like our grieving process, right? Because grieving is like a messy process anyway. I wouldn't, while it's interesting that people are doing that, it's also very scary, right? Because you don't know what that kind of impact would be. And I think this is what I mean when I say it's like the wild west of AI. Everyone's just like throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. Like, oh yeah, like I can do this. Okay, you can do this. Should you? Like, yeah.
There'll be arguments made that you should and you because you can. I mean, it prompts the question, right? Again, a philosophical one is what is it to be human? And if you create an AI model that has all the characteristics and enough data in it to create a person, is that not just the same as the kind of synapses in your brain? You know, what makes you who you are? Is it just a bunch of learning models and data? And then it gets into this weird space where we talk about real sci-fi AI, and it's like, can we just take your consciousness, everything that you've experienced and known, put it in a different body or entity, and then now you've got an AI which is a clone of you because they've learned everything that you've learned. And then what does that mean? And it's like,
yeah, and then you start getting into like the realms of like philosophy and deontology and all of that kind of stuff, and it's very messy, and like it's probably not worth kind of going into to an extent because we're not there yet, right? Everything we produce is, anything that's trying to be human-like is like a crude facsimile of being human-like, right? It's like if you took a drawing of a human that in full detail, and that's like every kind of imperfection and wrinkle of a human, and then our AI systems are kind of like a crude crayon drawing of an eye in comparison, right? They're where AI is really good is at doing things humans struggle with. That's what we should really be focusing AI on. And that's where the betterment is like getting it to do things that we struggle with doing. So, for instance, we actually really struggle with conceptualizing size, for instance, beyond like 13 individual, like I think it's like 13 individual things. And we can instantly count. Here's something you can only instantly recognize up to like 7 items normally. So like if you've got a grouping of items, you can only recognize like 7 instantly. You have to count them otherwise. Like our human brains are designed to work within relatively narrow, I say designed, but our human brains evolved to work within very narrow parameters, right? Our natural environment. So there are blind spots, literal blind spots with like how we deal with things. AI is really, if we can utilize AI for those blind spots, that can help us a lot. So for instance, pattern recognition, we're really good at pattern recognition. However, we're too good to the point where we over pattern recognition. And in the modern world where data is presented to us, like regularly fed directly to us in our tablets, we can start to detect patterns that aren't there. That's why crime is at an all-time low, but the fear of crime is at an all-time high because we're over analyzing those patterns, right? And so an AI system that instead looks at crime statistics and looks at news stories, and then alongside a news story tells you like the actual likelihood of something like this ever happening to you or happening to someone you know, that would be a system for the better, personally, I think. Yeah. But like, so, there's lots of ways where you need to think about this in terms of, okay, what can AI be useful for? So we're saying, okay, AI is could be useful for psychiatric help or helping these people. No, that's what people are good at doing. People are good at being with people. That's what we're a social creature. That's what we've evolved to do is like be within social groups. But all of a sudden, when we're dealing with 200 plus people, we struggle with that, right? Like you don't have 200 real friends on Facebook. You have 200 friends on Facebook. So managing those aspects and those ways we interact with the world and tools to help with that is like where I see the real benefit of AI.
Well, while I'd love to go into transportation and some of these other areas, we are now at an hour. do you want to wrap up? Because I think that's a very eloquent spot to do so.
I think we could probably sit here for days and discuss the thousands of issues and challenges around AI in society and AI in commercial and AI in philosophy and AI in everything, basically.
Yes.
So asking ChatGPT to summarize all this, it says AI's impact on the job force is multifaceted. While it might lead to job displacement in some areas, it also creates opportunities for invention, new roles, and improved AI-human collaboration. Adaptation through education, training, and a flexible approach to skills development will be key to navigating this changing landscape.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like,
Job
it doesn't
displacement.
say, it hasn't said anything that's wrong. I would say it's a very surface level kind of analysis of it, right? Like, yeah, these jobs will go away, but these jobs will appear. And it's like, well, yes, but how many jobs are going away versus how many are appearing, for instance? Like, it's not going to be the same amounts. And then there's a question of, can everyone be upskilled? Is that actually something we've proven? Like, I don't think it is. Like, can everyone do the jobs that will come out from AI? Not necessarily. And if so, what do the people that can't get these new jobs do?
That's what it wants as well. Not everyone wants to be a programmer. Not everyone wants to be a techie, right?
Yeah,
and if we're in a sci-fi world where everything's tech, I mean, there's some stuff now where you can't do anything if you don't have a phone. Like, my phone broke a couple of weeks ago, and my life basically paused because I didn't have tech. So it's, what's the next 50 years going to look like where you don't have your AR robot, so you can't do anything?
Yeah. And then does that mean that the old school craft goods become valuable, right? Like, will there be a point where, my macrame is worth, $1 million because everything is not done that way now? Like,
I mean, I feel like that already. I anything that's handcrafted, I immediately add more value to than something that's just come off a conveyor belt and been smashed together with a machine. I always prefer handcrafted stuff. It tends to be, I find, as well, as higher quality and higher durability. They usually last longer as well.
Sure. Cool. Okay, well, I think this was fascinating. A good first episode. Hopefully, everyone will join us for our next one. We're going to have links in the description here. And thank you guys for some thought-provoking discussion.
Yeah, like Chris said, we could talk about this stuff for hours and hours and hours. So, we'd be looking forward to doing the next one.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks.